What if I told you the real controllers of the US economy aren't the politicians you see on TV, or the CEOs that run the biggest companies? What if the true architects of our financial system have been operating in the shadows for over a century, pulling strings from behind closed doors, and they've made sure you never noticed? You feel the consequences every day. Inflation is squeezing your paycheck. Your debt is rising faster than your income. Job instability is rampant. You might be asking, how did we get here? Well, the truth is simple. These financial pain points are not just byproducts of a broken system. They are the engineered consequences of a game played by a very small group of elites who understand exactly how to profit off your struggle. Today, we are going to pull back the curtain and reveal the real controllers of the US economy. The silent bankers. They've been pulling the levers of power for decades, hidden from the public eye, manipulating the markets, and securing their control over the global financial system. But before we get into it, where are you watching from? Drop a comment below, and don't forget to hit subscribe for the unfiltered truth about the forces that govern your financial reality. This video is not for the faint-hearted. In 1913, the Federal Reserve was born, supposedly to stabilize the US economy and ensure a safer, more predictable financial system. It was designed to be an impartial body, acting in the public interest. But the truth is far from what we were told. The Federal Reserve was created in secret, after a series of backroom meetings between the wealthiest and most influential bankers in the world. Those in power saw a potential for increased control over the economy, and the Fed would give them just that. What we didn't realize is that the Federal Reserve was not an institution for public good, but one that served the interests of these hidden elites, allowing them to manipulate the money supply, interest rates, and, ultimately, the fate of the American people. Fast forward a few decades, and you see the same pattern emerging in the aftermath of the 2008 financial crisis. The same players, the banks, the Fed, and Wall Street elites were at the heart of the collapse. They weren't punished. They were rewarded. How? By being bailed out by taxpayers, while ordinary Americans suffered. The mechanism was slightly different, but the result was the same. The wealth and power of a small group of elites had once again been preserved, while the working class paid the price. But there's an even darker side to this. When the Federal Reserve bailed out the banks in 2008, they didn't just write a check. No, they created trillions in new money, which was injected into the economy through a practice known as quantitative easing. Over the years, this money creation ballooned, inflating asset prices and creating an illusion of prosperity for those who were already wealthy. The stock market soared to record highs, while real wages stagnated and more people fell into debt. This was not an accident. This was financial engineering at its finest, designed to funnel wealth upwards while leaving the majority of the population trapped in cycles of debt and poverty. What's worse, these financial crises were not isolated incidents. The same system that allowed the wealthy to profit from the crash in 2008 is still in place today, and it's only a matter of time before the next collapse happens. But this time, the stakes will be higher, and the system is even more fragile. Now, we get to the heart of the story, the mechanism that makes all of this possible. You've probably heard the term, too big to fail. But what does that really mean? It means that certain institutions, like the biggest banks in the world, are so deeply ingrained in the fabric of the global financial system that their failure would collapse the entire economy. But it's not just that these banks are too big, it's that they control the system. And how do they control it? Through derivatives. You've probably heard of derivatives in passing, but most people don't understand how these financial products became the ticking time bomb that nearly destroyed the global economy. Derivatives are essentially bets on the value of assets like mortgages, currencies, and commodities. But these aren't your typical bets. No, these bets are leveraged to the point that they have the power to completely destabilize the financial system. In the years leading up to the 2008 financial crisis, the biggest banks in the world were using derivatives to gamble on the housing market. These bets grew so large and so risky that when the housing market collapsed, the entire financial system was on the brink of disaster. But here's the thing. The key players who enabled this system to flourish were not just the bankers. It was also the Federal Reserve. Their policies of low interest rates and easy credit provided the perfect environment for banks to take on massive amounts of risk. You won't believe the name behind the disastrous decision that helped facilitate this dangerous gamble. The person who made it all possible is still in the corridors of power today, and the receipt for their actions is wilder than you think. Now, let's break this down. The core financial mechanism at play here is derivatives. But we're not just talking about a few small bets, we're talking about a global market worth over $500 trillion in notional value. And here's the real kicker: these derivatives are often unregulated, meaning there's no oversight or transparency. It's like a massive financial casino, and the house always wins. Derivatives were supposed to be a way for companies and banks to hedge against risk, but in reality, they became a way for these institutions to take on even more risk, amplifying their exposure to the economy's most volatile sectors. And when the housing market collapsed in 2007 to 2008, the derivatives tied to mortgages became worthless, bringing down entire financial institutions. Let me hit you with some shocking numbers to drive this home. $16 trillion, that's how much the Federal Reserve secretly loaned to major banks during the 2008 crisis. These loans were given under the guise of protecting the financial system, but in reality, they were bailing out the very banks that caused the crisis. Meanwhile, the average American lost their home, their job, and their savings. But the big banks? They made out like bandits, using taxpayer money to get back on their feet. Then, there's quantitative easing. In the aftermath of the crash, the Federal Reserve unleashed trillions of dollars into the economy, hoping to boost asset prices and encourage spending. But this didn't trickle down to the average American. Instead, the stock market surged, and wealth inequality exploded. By 2016, the richest 1% owned 40% of the wealth in the US, while the bottom 90% held just 27%. The Fed's actions created the illusion of recovery for the wealthy, while the rest of America was left behind. But here's the most important part. None of this was an accident. This was a deliberate system of wealth extraction. The wealth of the nation was funneled into the hands of a few global elites, leaving the rest of the population with debt, stagnant wages, and no real way to escape the system. Here's the sobering truth. The financial system today is faster, more interconnected, and more fragile than ever before. The next financial collapse will not be a slow burn, will be a sudden, catastrophic event that will bring down even the largest institutions in the world. And when it happens, it won't just affect the banks. It will affect you, your family, your job, your savings. The system isn't sustainable. It's a house of cards built on borrowed time. And when it collapses, the elites who caused it will once again walk away unscathed, leaving you to pick up the pieces. So, what can we do? The first step is awareness. We must recognize the financial manipulation for what it is: a rigged game designed to benefit the few at the expense of the many. Are we wiser now? Or are we just walking the same path in better suits, waiting for the next collapse to happen? If this video opened your eyes, share it with someone who needs to see the truth. Let's wake up to the reality of the financial system we live in. Subscribe for more unfiltered truths, and leave your thoughts below. Together, we can start a conversation that could change everything.